So, calculites. Today we're going to look at the law of cosines. And the last section, we looked at the law of sines, which applied to two circumstances here. And notice the key thing, what we needed here. We needed, I know, boom! Whoa! We needed angle, angle, side, or angle, side, angle. And then the ambiguous case, a pair of sides, or the side, sides, and angles in that order. Now notice why I can't use side, side, side for the law of sine. So remember the law of sine says something like this, not something like this, but this, where we have like so, and if I had put in all my sides, so let's just say this one was 10, this one was 12, and this one was 15. Notice that if I covered up something and I cross-multiplied here, I would have two variables, an a and a b. So I cannot use the law of sine when I have a whole bunch of sides only. So the law of sine requires me to have a specific pattern of angles. So in the case where I have side, 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 so for example, I know all three of those, or I know this side here, and this angle, the angle included, then I'm going to use something called the law of cosine, which looks like this. Hashtag my math book threw up. Okay, so it does look ugly, but if you think about it, there is a Pythagorean smell here, just a hint of Pythagorean theorem, just a hint, and then this 2 BC thing. But let's try to find a pattern real quick. So alternative forms are if you're finding the angles. But again, notice some patterns here. This is the angle I'm looking for, and that's the opposite side being subtracted. And the same thing applies over here. Here I have a B there and a B there, and the C's, of course, repeat as well. So, and that applies down below here where B is here and B is being subtracted, etc. All right, so one skill we want to know is, first off, how to apply which rule are we going to use? Are we going to use law of sine, or are we going to use the law of cosines? So here's when we use the law of cosine would be when we know all the sides, or we know a pair of sides and the included angle.
Don't we use, there's an essay.
So when do we use law of sine? Law of sine will be the alternative or the others. So whenever we have a pair of angles and a side like this, a pair of angles and the included side, or the ambiguous case of side, side, angle. All right, so looking at these examples here, which ones are we going to use? So the first one here, I have an A, capital B, and small c. Because I have three different letters, I'm going to use the law of cosine.
Why? 3 different letters. Oh.
All right, second one. I have a small a, small b, small c.
Cosine.
Law of cosine.
See, I had that one. Why?
Okay, so the shortcut for the the three separate letters does not necessarily apply to this case in the first one here. So I need to, because I have two angles right here and here, I can now find the third angle, which means I'm going to do law of sine. Okay, but since this one is, for B, is side, 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 then that's going to be law of cosine. Down here is a pair of, or excuse me, a side, and the included angle, because that's a different letter. So side, angle, side. So that's going to be law of cosine. And here we have opposites right there. And then the third one, so this one's going to be side, side, angle. And if we can solve it at all, it's going to be with the law of sine. All right, so let's go ahead and solve for the situation here. You must solve for the largest angle first, or else you get punched in the neck. All right, how do we know, according to this example, which one's going to be the largest angle?
B, side
Good. Largest side. So B is going to be the largest angle. So that means we need to use one of these. And let's use this one right here. So the setup, of course, is going to say cosine. So my first step, primarily my first step, is I'm going to use the law of cosine. And it's going to say that the cosine of angle B is equal to, now we're going to square the other ones, right? So there's my A, there's my C. So 31 squared plus 28 squared. And notice we have to subtract the 52 squared all over 2 times the 31 and the 28. So we can just plug that whole thing into the calculator all at once. Ready, set, go. So the cosine of B is going to be approximately negative 0.5524. So then we have to inverse cosine to get our approximate value of 123.5 degrees. Now we can use the law of cosine again, but look how ugly it is. So let's now simplify it by using the law of sine. Using the one angle we have here and the pair of sides up here. So if this is my B, then let's use B, 52, and then it doesn't matter which one I'm going to find, A or C, from there. So setting it up, let's go ahead and start with A. So 31 over the sine of A is equal to, and now let's do B, 52, and the sine of what I just found, 123.5 degrees. Now we cross multiply here and divide vertically. So the sine of A is going to be approximately 0.4971, and now inverse sine. So A is approximately 29.8 degrees. And now that we have we have A, we have B. So B there is 123.5, A is 29.8. So in this case, I don't have to do law of sine or law of cosine again. Good. I can just use the triangle sum theorem, which of course says the three angles add up to 180. So that means C has to be approximately 26.7 degrees. Whoo! And there we go. Good. Now let's look at example number 3. We're asked to solve this triangle. And again, let's see the pattern that we have here. Let's establish which method we need to use. Notice that I have an angle here. I don't have the opposite, and I have a side, but notice that's not necessarily the pattern. Notice that the angle A goes in between the B and the C. So this is side, angle, side. Okay. How do I know the angle is in between? Because it's a different letter.
You can see it on the. Oh.
Okay, so now step number 1 is let's go ahead and use the law of cosine. And let's see which one to use. We already have the angle A. We have angle A, so that means I can now find side A. So let's use the funky one that says A squared equals. Now what do I substitute in? I substitute in the non-A's right here, and I have to add them together, 15 squared plus 28 squared. Now I'm going to subtract 2 times that same product, 15 and 25. And now I throw in the cosine and 115 degrees. And yes, I did make a mistake. That's 28, not 25, right here and right here. All this goes into your calculator. So before we even finish solving this, we know that this is an obtuse angle, so it's the largest angle. So clearly, A has to be larger than 28 because it's the largest. And clearly, A has to be smaller than 43, which is the sum of those two. So when I start plugging things in, I have an expectation of a result. A squared is going to be about 1363.9999999 something. And when you take the square root of both sides, you get 36.9, which fits perfectly in my expectation here. Now, we can do the law of sine now that we have small a. So, step 2, law of sine, and a was 36.9 over the sine of 115. And we're going to, it doesn't matter which one to find, B or C. I'll just do B because I'm alphabetical in nature. Okay, so now we go and cross multiply and divide vertically. And in the end here, after we inverse sine, I get about 21.6. So now I can use the triangle sum theorem, which will give me 180 minus the A minus the B. And I end up getting C is approximately equal to 43.4. I got 4. Did you get 5?